You heard it here first on the Casuals of Runeterra. Ziggs is a raging alcoholic.
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra 77. I'm your host Ryan, here with your other host Hedge.
We've done this so many times, and yet we still just can't start off
to hit the record
with straight
button.
faces.
We're back, as promised, as always, with another episode. We're talking about Ziggs today. It's about time. We're going back to Yordles. We gave you a little break with the previous episodes, but
let's be honest. Let's be honest to our fans. We gave me a little break.
We gave Hedge a little break.
They probably enjoy Yordles.
He doesn't enjoy Yordles, but he does enjoy housekeeping, which we do up top, and you can listen to us everywhere. Visit us at podcastcore.com for all of our info. You can like, follow, leave a short review, comment. We appreciate it. You can do that, on the platform you use or all the platforms to help us out. It gives us visibility. We appreciate it a lot. If you want to contact us, podcastcore@gmail.com is the easiest way to do it, or Twitter. Twitter's pretty good as well. But the one thing you can do for us is verbally tell a friend to understand the glory of fire by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
And tell that friend to also just cackle madly while fireworks go off around them.
I think our taglines have been a little bit destructive lately, and it's weird because we're talking about Yordles, and you would think Yordles are whimsical and nah.
To be fair to us, we've also kind of piled together the most lunatic Yordles, all back to back, because it's like we didn't space it out with okay, let's put Poppy in between Rumble and Ziggs here.
True.
We went Vigar, Rumble, Ziggs. Boom goes the dynamite.
So we love fire today. Pyromania is the name of the episode, and we're just going to hop into it. You know who Ziggs is. He's been in the game for a minute, and we start with a spell here, and you know this one as well, which is Mega Inferno Bomb, which, if you play the game, is Ziggs' ultimate, and here, it's not as good as that ultimate in
Not even close.
Not even close. It's a 7-cost slow spell that has deal 1 to all enemies, and then do it again. It's not even really how his ability works in the game as well. But this is an unplayable card, but it does have some good old flavor to it. A quote from Ziggs that says, "Bring out the big one."
You got to get Yordle enough. Bring out the big one.
That was better.
I will just for the sake of the card game, I will say that this card could be fast speed, and it would still be unplayable.
Yeah.
7 mana to deal 2.
Just
come
too
on.
much.
It's too much. So just go ahead and buff it to fast speed, and then maybe you'll see some lunatic play a 1-of, and that will benefit your metrics riot. But this is a swing and a miss.
Yeah.
Which it's rare for us to say about the card game when it comes to bringing the two games together.
Yeah, I think with Ziggs, once we get to it, Hetch will talk about the card. It was an interesting take on him as well, just across the board, because it does reference his bio a bit, even though his bio is kind of outdated. The in-game stuff doesn't reflect too well with him in the game. I mean, he does do damage to structures in the game. We'll get there, but
we'll get there.
We do get some of his crew, though. We're not going to go through all of his crew in their card form. We'll get to that in other episodes when we talk more about his story, etc. But for this one, I figured we chose one that is a standout, which is the Arsenal.
The Arsenal is by far a standout. Both in playability and in flavor.
Yeah, and they call him Arnie, which is great. He's a 8-cost 8/6, probably one of the biggest Yordles you've seen. The Arsenal, when I'm summoned, grant me a random keyword from each allied landmark you've destroyed this game. When you destroy an allied landmark, grant me a random keyword. Once again, not a great card. This is a card that's definitely meant for fun. It's meant to just represent a character from his group and to give them some life in the game.
Yeah, and as far as like the playability, this card is like sees a good bit of play because it's basically a win condition. Like because if you're building around flipping Ziggs, or if you're just putting it in an aggressive deck with maybe like Talia, you're destroying enough landmarks to give him about 4 to 5 keywords,
Yeah.
and at that point, he's basically like a pantheon. He's terrifying. So it's a really nice finisher to have at the top end of your curve. But
Yeah.
but no, we're here to talk about Arnie. We're not here to talk about the card.
Yeah, he's a big dude, but he's the level-headed one. And we've talked about how, many of the Yordles we mentioned to this point have all inspired certain groups of Yordles along their path, right? And Ziggs has done the same through his antics, and Arnie's not one you would think that would show up. But we got a quote here that says, wherever Ziggs went, Arnie followed. His serene demeanor, a natural foil to Ziggs' chaotic zeal. His duties range from making sure the munitions were stocked, to putting out fires, to clapping his hands over Ziggs' ears when Ziggs inevitably forgot hearing protection. Who needs it?
Who needs it? Who needs it? Not the two guys recording this who are at that age where we get to watch some of our friends we grew up with lose their hearing.
Exactly.
Not us. But if you have not done this, do yourself a favor and open up the full art of this card, because it like fully reinforces that Arnie is just the foil to Ziggs. And especially once we get into his bio, being the foil to Ziggs means that you are basically a superhero.
I wonder how close he is to human size. It's always when I see a big Yordle, I'm like, okay, put him next to a human. I want to see like how big this dude is.
Oh man, I do want to see that.
He's probably the size of a like teenage child, which is pretty big for a Yordle.
Yeah, I mean that's big for a Yordle, but it would be like crazy to see like this guy toting this gigantic bomb, swinging in to save the day, and he just comes up like barely past your hip.
Yeah, and definitely listen. His name's the Arsenal. They call him Arnie. This has to be a reference to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Come on,
it's gotta be.
That has to be an homage. Maybe.
Like, all right, let's Riot. Please fix the voice lines for Arnie. Get to the chopper.
But yeah, tell us about Ziggs. Let's get into it.
All right, so this is inevitable. So I'm just gonna put this at the top, open it up. So big spoilers for people who only play the card game. We're not gonna mention Shurima at all.
Yeah.
All right. And I'll get into that more when we get into the card, as far as just like the creative stance that Riot took with it. Ziggs' story and a lot of the stories that include him outside of his bio, he does not appear in Shurima. He is purely Bandle City and Piltover-Zaun. Like he appears a lot in Piltover-Zaun. But for the sake of the card game, they made him a Shurima unit, I'm sure, just to flesh out the rest of the regions when they were putting in these multi-region Yordle characters.
And one reason that may be as well that they did it was Shurima's so big and so vast, and there's a lot of empty space to it. For the art we got, looks like they're doing a lot of testing of his bomb projects, and that's probably like, hey, he's usually in these wide open spaces so he doesn't destroy things. So let's just say he's Shurima. That's how we'll play that foil. Yeah,
we could definitely say that it's his playground, and there's reason enough.
Sandbox.
Well, that's it for us. Take care, everybody. I hate it here. So yeah, I mean, like it could definitely be his testing area, but as far as in the story, there's no mention of it. This is just us speculating, or it could be a thing that Riot is setting up for a short story in the future to put it together. Who knows? But for the sake of today's episode, this is the last time we're talking about Shurima until we talk about the card. And so let's get into the beginning of his bio, which the bio, like every Piltover-Zaun champion ever, we are going to talk about a young, talented, tinkering youth. So you can't have a P&Z character You can't have the beginning of their story without talking about how talented they are. Uh, and that is Ziggs's beginning, except that this is Ziggs we're talking about. So where he differs from the other youths that start their humble beginnings tinkering away, he's a bit chaotic, even by Yordle's standards. The Ziggs is hyperactive and chaotic, and it's very unusual as far as just the fact that he is more chaotic than the rest of the Yordles, as well as being extremely chaotic compared to the Yordles that take the path of inventors and scientists. He is an anomaly there. And as far as his chaotic beginnings, though he is chaotic, he is very gifted at what he does. So he has a goal in mind, and that goal is to become a recognized inventor like the great Professor Heimerdinger.
So from our previous episodes, we've had episodes where we talk about Ziggs tangentially. I mean, our Paint the Town episode, if you haven't listened to that one, where he runs into Jinx and they have a little bit of fun. And what we know is that until he gets triggered in a way, he's pretty much just a hyperactive inventor, right? He's very focused, but then there's a spark, and he's very aware of his predilection for fire, his pyromania. So he knows when he's about to go over the edge, when that bottle of liquor gets a little bit close and he's like, I'm about to fall off the wagon. But he's very aware of it, which is different from a lot of Yordle situations.
All right, you heard it here first on the Casuals of Runeterra. Ziggs is a raging alcoholic. He's not making bombs. He's just trying to like build stills. He's too drunk. Oh goodness. But yeah, like he is very intelligent, and he's aware of the fact that there are some things that just kind of push him over the edge and he loses control. And it's because of this balance of being able to pursue his passion while also recognizing that he kind of goes overboard, that he's able to get to a point where he is recognized by the academy in Piltover, in the city of Piltover, that is the Yordle Academy. Which, if you haven't listened to our Heimerdinger episode, Heimerdinger's bio is kind of similar to Ziggs, where it's a little bit on the outdated side, where we don't have a lot of the details of the big story, but we do know that Heimerdinger becomes very recognized in Piltover and is able to upstart the Yordle Academy in Piltover to mirror the academy that we know that Jace and Victor go to, thanks to their bios and Arcane. So once Ziggs is recognized, he gets an opportunity to demonstrate his craft. So he gets to go and put on a presentation to basically like his application, like, hey, this is what I can do, and if you think you can treat me as your clay and mold me, take me on. And this would be fine for everyone except Ziggs, but Ziggs, being chaotic in nature, he has a complete disregard for safety. So he builds his experiment, he undergoes his presentation, and the experiment explodes. And this is not this is not just like that, oh no, I have a beaker of chemicals and the beaker broke explosion. No, he blows a freaking wall off. It just blows a big old hole into the whole academy.
Yeah, this is a no-no. And from the arcane version of Heimer that we know now, which we cannot ignore, he's a stickler for safety rules. Let's just apply that thought here, where this guy who looks up to him, wants to study with him, whatever, is like pretty much the opposite when it comes to safety measures. So yeah, it shocks not only him, but a lot of the scientists as well.
Yeah, and again, as far as like being a stickler for safety, like thanks to Arcane, we also know that this Heimerdinger's transition into really being afraid of where science is going is the use of hex tech, and this is kind of, a little foreshadowing on the story, but we know that Ziggs is playing around with hex tech. Like, whether or not it's stable enough where we know that Piltover is using it for their gates and all of the transportation of goods within the city, Heimerdinger doesn't trust this. And now he's given evidence as to why he doesn't trust it, because there's this Yordle standing in front of him that has blown the whiskers off of his mustache. Like, so all of the professors of the Yordle Academy, they take a moment to dust themselves off and politely ask Ziggs to leave. And Ziggs, a little defeated, he goes to take his leave, and it's at this moment that a group of Zaunite rogues, they seize an opportunity, because it's not every day that one of the most secure and prestigious establishments in all of Piltover has a giant hole inside of it. And a group of Zaunites end up going through the breach and kidnapping the professors and running away. So let's talk about just how cartoony the scene has got to be.
I was just about to say, we talk a lot about writing prowess. And reading this, you're like, wait, what? How did we get here? And why? Why did we go this direction? But this is definitely a case of a very early story.
Yeah, like it's definitely the early story, but I do appreciate that it really does kind of cling on to how cartoony of a character Ziggs is, which is, is reminiscent of our Vygar episode when we talk about like Vygar. The end result is very cartoony, but the story is heavy.
Yeah, it's dark at its core.
Like, it takes a lot of darkness to get there. Whereas even in such a light bio for Ziggs here, because it's not nearly as fleshed out as Vygar's story, they still kind of give a tip of the hat to like, okay, no, there's a bit of cartoon.
Like, hey, what if we made PTSD fun?
Gross. Yeah, so Vygar's making PTSD fun, where this one is like, hey, what if Looney Tunes existed in our world too?
Yeah.
And so what we've got is like some, masked burglars that look suspiciously like Bugs Bunny, just grabbing all these Yordles and making a break for it.
Yeah.
But what we know is that the professors get kidnapped, and the enforcers, they take a look into the scene, and which thanks to Arcane, we know that they very much have a lot of police standards going on. So we know that it is treated like a crime scene, and they follow all their leads, and they're able to track down the professors and this group of rogues to a prison in Zaun. And so we don't know if this is a prison that is like run by the city, or if it was a previously used prison that's now abandoned. We don't know details like that, but we know that the Zaunites have their now prisoners in an actual prison. And one of the issues is that this prison is a very heavily fortified building. So the enforcers have no way of getting in. We can kind of be led to believe that it may actually be like a city funded thing, because it's not like they were able to get like a warrant or anything to get in. So whether like that could be that like the city of Zaun is like, no, this is Zaun business, so you stay out of it. Or it could be that it was an abandoned thing, and it's like, oh, there's a bunch of people. Repurposed. Yeah, there's a bunch of people that are trying to kill us when we, knock on the door. So never mind. We don't know those details, but the enforcers kind of reach a dead end. They don't find a way to legally get in. They don't find a way to sneak their way in. So they have been stopped by this heavily fortified wall. And Ziggs looks at this opportunity and says, "A wall, you say?" Blowing up a wall is kind of what got me in this predicament. Is blowing up a wall the way that I get out of it? And this chaotic-minded Yordle is able to see the opportunity when one door closes, another door opens. Forcefully. And when that door closes, you make a door.
This is the great part, because this is what you see in the real world, right? Like how salt was made. Like that, you always have like the best innovators come up with their stuff on accident while trying to achieve some other goal. That's the fun part of science. And once again, Ziggs is here to prove that. His fun's a little more damaging, but it turned out to be the result of something useful.
a very juvenile take on the scientific approach is, the old adage of fuck around and find out. And Ziggs has been fucking around, and now he has finished fucking around, he's about to find out that an explosion is his way to victory here. So he actually goes back to his experiment, the failed experiment for his application into the academy, and repurposes it while harnessing the mistake. So he is harnessing what caused this explosion to try to make the explosion even bigger.
Yeah.
And his efforts end up repurposing this experiment into a new invention of his own, which he has so lovingly dubbed Hexplosives.
Yeah, it works.
And
it's branding, baby.
That's branding, baby. Oh yeah, slap your face on it. $15.99 on the market.
1 for 3, 2 for 5.
That's right. And so now that he has his Hexplosive, he goes to the prison and he stages a wonderfully beautiful prison escape. Blows a big old hole in the side of this prison, goes in through the breach with more, but albeit smaller, Hexplosives, and just starts chucking bombs everywhere.
Yeah.
All right. Like, the subtlety is not the name of the game here.
This is a point where he gets to finally indulge. So we talked about him having two selves, and he knows that, hey, here's an excuse where they need my mistake to help them get in. And why not? Who better? Because listen, there's probably other experts who can handle this operation. But he's like, I'm not giving up the opportunity to enjoy the fireworks. I will be there. You know what? I'll be on the front lines.
He's the guy that's like, instead of waiting for the experts, he's going to like reach into his pocket and say, "Here are my credentials," and hand you a grenade. All right, it's like, "Here are my credentials," and then he's on the move. He doesn't care about this explosion anymore. He has a bigger one to attend to. So now we've got this prison escape. He's chucking bombs everywhere. He finds the imprisoned professors, uses more bombs to blow off their cell, and then gets them out of there. He drags them out.
Success.
And the prison escape is a success. And it's thanks to this prison escape that the professors, once again having to dust off debris and check on their whiskers, this time, instead of saying that he can go back to Bandle City, they reluctantly thank him for the operation, and they give him the new honorary title within the academy, which is the Dean of Demolitions.
Yeah. So
a name.
I like to think that this is the point where we get another excuse to do the Shurima thing, right? Because we can say, hey, all right, we're going to accept you into the program, but you have to do your experiments in the middle of fucking nowhere so you don't destroy the city. And you can do whatever you want, experiment with whatever you want. Yeah. And then as he does that, he attracts all the friends we now see around him in the game.
Yeah, like there's definitely avenues that Riot can take to make the Shurima connection, because I mean, he's the Dean of Demolitions now.
Yeah.
Like what? Okay, yeah, let's go ahead. Let's take some of our academy funding to purchase a ticket for Ziggs to go to Shurima for like 8 months.
Yeah.
And then we'll worry about Ziggs in 8 months. All right? Like,
he lives that long. I mean,
get him out.
He's not going to do more damage than the multiple runations. So like, it only makes sense. It's the perfect idea.
And if he does more damage than the multiple ruinations, that's a scientific marvel. Like that'll give us so much grant money to look into how the hell did Ziggs do that.
Yeah, it's a great end to the story.
Yeah, so like that, and since it is the end of the story, like we're joking here as far as like how they can make the connection, but currently there is no connection into Shurima. There is definitely avenues, but the Shurima connection is currently only limited to Runeterra.
Yeah. And hey, Riot, you can take our story and then pay us for it. But you have full permission to take it and then pay us for it.
That's right. Both of us better appear as NPCs. But let's take a look at the card, like the only look into Shurima that we've got currently. So Ziggs is a beautiful powerhouse for aggressive style decks. So he is a 3-mana 3/4. Immediately dumpy seal of approval.
Yep.
All right, like that. This is a great stat line. Every Demacian card that had the stat line has been nerfed. So it's a powerhouse. And that's before we even get to all the flavor on the card, because this is a champion we're talking about. So 3-mana 3/4. On the attack, deal 1 damage to my blocker and the enemy nexus. Again, powerhouse in the aggressive style deck, because that is 1 damage to face that you cannot stop. And like we've talked about with aggressive decks before, the goal of an aggressive deck is counting as quickly as you can to 20. So every point of 1 that you can add onto that count is just 1 point of damage faster to 20. And now his level up condition is that you have destroyed 4+ allied landmarks this game. And that is obviously like the tie-in to his Shurima roots, because Shurima is by far, hands down, the landmark region in the card game. And it's about the only homage that we get to his actual playability in League of Legends, because he does have like he's one of the only characters, if not the only character, that has a spell that can interact with towers. So that's about it. That's as much as I got there. All right, I can't stretch it any further. So on his flip side, he becomes a 4/5 and now has deal 2 damage to my blocker and the enemy nexus. Powerhouse. And he now also has, when an allied landmark is destroyed, deal 2 to the enemy nexus. So this is something that's going to be hitting the board early. It's going to be hitting your face early. And the longer it stays, the more damage you're going to take.
So like we said at the beginning of the episode, it's a unique take on the game behavior, right? Because I think many people probably don't know that Ziggs, every so often, his auto attacks do more damage to turrets. So that fits in here. And then obviously when you destroy turrets in League of Legends, you then open up their nexus to be able to attack it. So it's there. It's just, it wouldn't be on the surface of, oh, Ziggs just tosses bombs, does a bunch of damage.
I mean, it's there, but it's not like the other champions where it is immediately connected. Like, it's a very nuanced approach to it. And I can appreciate the nuance as well, because of the fact that landmarks are such a unique thing to Runeterra. So having another champion that really plays around these landmarks and rewards you for playing around such a unique mechanic, it is a clever way to like still keep the 2 games together while really highlighting what's unique about Runeterra. So this is not a thing of me saying, that they failed as far as their conversion of Ziggs. It's just that it's a lot harder to see. Where a lot of the other champions are more natural. But hey, at the very least, this is not like Poppy. Like, this is not a complete swing and miss. It was a complete swing and miss with, some of his unique spells. Rest in peace, Mega Inferno Bomb. But of course, we can't talk about a card on this show unless we talk about the flavor. And oh boy, Ziggs is going to bring some spicy flavors into this wonderful dish. So on the front of his card, we've got a direct quote from a conversation of Ziggs and Otto, which, go look at some of the other followers that came with the Ziggs package. They all have fun quotes, but this is a direct quote from their conversation. Man, it's important we make a good impression. The new safety inspector is stopping by, and you know what that means. No more explosions? What? No, it means explode things where he can't see them. No more explosions. Are you crazy? Oh man, so a little bit of insight into my life. I've worked a good handful of factory jobs, and then have worked in logistics. So like on, like with a lot of truckers and stuff. Yeah, if OSHA comes around, This isn't the time to fix everything. It's the time to hide what hasn't been fixed. This is just facts. Like, this isn't even a quote between Ziggs and Otto anymore.
Listen, it's the human condition to take shortcuts we're able. That's what makes us so strong.
Yeah. And don't you worry your pretty little head, because when we get to the backside, we know how the safety inspection went. And because the safety, the flipped version of Ziggs is Ziggs speaking with Wilfred, the safety inspector, and it's Ziggs. We passed. We passed. Well, passed is a strong word, but hoo-wee. If you didn't put on a heck of a show.
He was so impressed, they made him a card. It's funny when the safety inspector becomes part of the crew, right? Like, that's the type of cartoony stuff we like to see. And that cartoon nature is something we want to segue into, the end here is talking about, well, Ziggs is a high possibility for Arcane, right? And we say that because we know from stories that he does have a lot of involvement with Heimer on a personal level, regardless of how that story is portrayed in the show. And then where the show leaves off, go listen to our Arcane episodes if you haven't, Heimer is more open to things. He's a very closed off, very by the books guy in the beginning of Arcane. And by the end, he's changed. And that would be a great place to introduce somebody who his like right-hand man or counterpart that is so different from him, which is Ziggs, because Ziggs is capable, but it also gives you a comedic aspect because Heimer's not really the funny guy. He's the straight guy. And then you have Ziggs. There's some comedic element. You can give him a good voice. There's plenty of voice actors out there that can pull it off. I think it would be a cool addition, even in a small role.
I agree wholeheartedy. It would be a really cool addition. And I am a sucker for comedy. So like anytime there's an opportunity to bring on a more comedic element, I'm going to like vouch for it 100% of the time. But I also feel like it'd be a good addition because it's sorely needed at where we've left off in Arcane. I'm not going to like go into the details in case if you somehow haven't watched it yet, go watch it. Oh my God. But I mean, Arcane is really like the only other comedic character that we would have at this point would be Jinx.
Yeah.
But Arcane has very much shown us that what they're focusing on for Jinx as a character is the transition from Powder to Jinx. And they've done a great job with it. And by they've done a great job with it, she is not in a comedic state right now. So I feel like it'd be sorely needed to have another, slapsticky character if they want to add more comedy into it, because it's not going to come from Jinx anytime soon.
Yeah, some levity, because and as we said is in our Arcane episodes is that explosions in Arcane matter, right? They are explosions for real and they're handled very well. And like the joke we made about Vygar, Ziggs can make explosions fun. So even though they're extremely dangerous in the show, he can add some roundness to them. It's like, what if we use this to have a good time, right? So who knows? Yeah. It would be cool to see him.
Yeah. Oh man, can you see it now of just like an explosion going off, but like you're following Ziggs, so it's just like this cartoony fun and all this jazz, and then we do a cut to another character, see what's going on with them that episode, and then we cut back to the aftermath of that explosion, and it's like Caitlyn and Vi going through the wreckage of that Ziggs has caused, and it's just like this is not the same explosion that we just watched, but it's the same crime scene. What's happening?
And definitely go listen to Paint the Town after this, because if you haven't listened to it before, because he does have some crossover with Ziggs, which we can't neglect to mention that. So Riot, if you haven't done it, think about it. It could be a good fit. But yeah.
And if you need help, we got you.
Yeah.
That's podcastcore@gmail.com.
It's simple. And with that, as always, thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with the next episode.
Yeah, take care, everybody.